Imagine a river that could turn an empire's navy into splinters overnight. A daring general, outnumbered and outgunned, setting a trap so clever it would echo through history for over 1,000 years. This is the story of Ngô Quyền in the Battle of Bạch Đằng, where Vietnam's destiny was forged in the tidal waters of the Bạch Đằng River. Stay with me, because empires don't fall every day, but when they do, it's spectacular. He was young, underestimated, and yet he would write his name in history with blood and cunning. In 938 CE, Vietnam was not yet fully independent. The region had been under Chinese domination for over a millennium. Local warlords and generals were constantly plotting, but one man, Ngô Quyền, emerged with a vision: freedom. Born into a turbulent time, Quyen trained as a military strategist and was deeply familiar with the rhythms of the Vietnamese rivers. His cunning wasn't built overnight, it was forged in years of skirmishes, learning to fight not against numbers, but against geography itself. By the late 930s, the Southern Han Dynasty, based in what is now Guangdong, China, decided to reconquer the region. They sent a massive fleet down the Red River Delta to crush local resistance. Ngô Quyền knew a frontal assault would be suicide. Instead, he turned the landscape, the tides, the river, and even the mud itself, into weapons. This was not just a battle, it was a masterclass in strategy, psychology, and timing. The Chinese Empire thought it could steamroll a small river kingdom. They were dead wrong. The Southern Han fleet was massive, hundreds of ships bristling with soldiers, archers, and generals confident in their superiority. Their plan was simple: sail up the Bạch Đằng River, crush local forces, and restore imperial rule. Ngô Quyền watched them approach. He knew the river like the back of his hand, its tides, its hidden shallows, its deadly surprises. But how do you stop an unstoppable force? The answer lay beneath the water itself. Quyen devised a plan that would turn the river into a weapon. Using sharpened wooden stakes hidden in the riverbed, timed perfectly with the tides, he would trap and destroy the invaders in one devastating strike. The river itself would become a killer, every tide a weapon, every current a trap. Ngô Quyền chose a narrow stretch of the Bạch Đằng River near modern-day Ha Long Bay. He and his men drove thousands of iron-tipped wooden stakes deep into the riverbed, pointing upriver like a forest of deadly teeth. These stakes were carefully concealed during high tide, making the river seem safe. When the Southern Han fleet sailed upriver at high tide, they had no idea they were heading straight into a trap. Ngô Quyền calculated the tides with astonishing precision. At low tide, the stakes would emerge from the water, piercing ships' hulls and immobilizing them. The river, normally a lifeline, would become a graveyard. It was not just about physical force, it was about timing, surprise, and psychological dominance. The Han commanders didn't even suspect they were being lured into certain doom. An empire's fleet, confident and proud, suddenly finds itself impaled and trapped. Panic spreads like wildfire. As the Southern Han fleet advanced, Ngô Quyền forces stayed hidden along the banks, ready to strike. At first, nothing seemed amiss. The tide was high, the river calm, and the Han sailors laughed at the small Vietnamese army. But then, the tide began to fall. Slowly, the wooden stakes emerged from the water. The first few ships struck the stakes, their hulls torn open. Panic rippled through the fleet. Archers on the riverbanks unleashed volleys of arrows, while Vietnamese soldiers in small, agile boats attacked the immobilized ships. Chaos reigned. The Southern Han soldiers were trapped, unable to maneuver, unable to retreat. The river had turned into a trap, and Ngô Quyền forces were the predators. Within hours, the mighty fleet that had marched with imperial pride was shattered. This was more than a battle, it was a symphony of nature and strategy, composed by one man. Ngô Quyền brilliance lay in his deep understanding of both nature and warfare. He didn't just use stakes, he used the tides themselves as a weapon. By luring the fleet upriver at high tide, then striking at low tide, he ensured maximum destruction while minimizing risk to his own forces. The terrain was another ally. The narrow channels of the river made it impossible for the Southern Han to escape once trapped. Meanwhile, the Vietnamese forces, familiar with every bend and eddy, struck with precision and speed. Historians would later call this a classic example of asymmetric warfare, a smaller, less equipped force defeating a much larger one through superior strategy, environment mastery, and timing. Ngô Quyền had done what few generals could, he had made the river itself a weapon. One battle, one river, one genius, Vietnam's independence was won in a single day. the result was decisive. Nearly the entire Southern Han fleet was destroyed or captured. Thousands of soldiers drowned or were taken prisoner. The Vietnamese suffered minimal casualties. Ngô Quyền emerged as a national hero, having dealt a blow that would secure Vietnam's independence for centuries to come. This victory also marked the beginning of the Ngô dynasty, with Ngô Quyền himself declared king. More importantly, it demonstrated that local knowledge, ingenuity, and courage could overcome even the mightiest empires. For the Vietnamese people, the Battle of Bạch Đằng became a symbol of resistance, strategy, and the power of fighting smart, not just hard. It would be remembered and celebrated in folklore, poetry, and history books for generations. 1,000 years later, militaries still study this river, this battle, this genius. The Battle of Bạch Đằng didn't just free a nation, it became a case study in military strategy. Vietnamese leaders would later use the same river tactics to repel Mongol invasions in the 13th century, proving that Ngô Quyền methods were timeless. Modern military strategists admire his understanding of terrain, psychology, and timing. The battle is cited in textbooks as a perfect example of turning a disadvantage into an overwhelming advantage. Ngô Quyền story is a reminder: courage, intelligence, and knowledge of one's environment can topple empires. The river that swallowed the Southern Han fleet remains a symbol of national pride in Vietnam, a silent witness to one of history's most brilliant victories. The river, the stakes, the tides, they all tell a story of brilliance, bravery, and freedom. Ngô Quyền didn't just win a battle, he carved Vietnam's destiny into the earth and water itself. If you loved witnessing this epic showdown, make sure to hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more stories where history comes alive, because some battles aren't just fought, they're engineered to be legendary.